Hi, and welcome to the FARcast. I'm Alex Helmbrecht, and I'm joined here, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Daniel Binkard. Our guest today is, believe it or not, the first women's wrestling coach in Chadron State College history. And CSC's been here since 1911, so you're making history, Elijah. But Alijah Jeffery, so thankful that you're able to join us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. We'll get right into it. So as I alluded to, you have the distinction of being the first ever women's wrestling coach at CSC, which is pretty neat. Talk a little bit, how did that opportunity come about for you?
So after I finished my collegiate wrestling career, I went almost immediately into coaching. I had started at the club level, coaching both boys and girls. And then I was given an opportunity at Indian Hills Community College to join their coaching staff as they started both a men's and a women's program. After just a short time there, I pretty much took over the women's wrestling program and took over all the duties there. So I was kind of at the starting point for women's collegiate wrestling. I was in pretty early, and we had success at Indian Hills. We actually won the first junior college women's national championship, dual and individual. So spent 2 years there, and then I saw that Chadron State was adding a women's wrestling program, and just with my circumstance, I wanted to be a head coach and coach at the NCAA level. So I jumped on the opportunity, and before I had ever been out to Chadron, I put my name in the hat, applied, and the rest is history now.
And so, I mean, obviously it's worked out well, but when you're at Indian Hills, what type of, how long has women's wrestling been a collegiate sport? We're not talking multiple decades here, right?
It has been around for a while, but
good.
For the most part, I'd say that first decade was only a handful of teams competing. So there was not many options, maybe 5 or 6 options originally for girls to continue on at the college level. And then I'd say past 4 years, it's really seen an increase. You can see it at the high school level with statewide numbers doubling, tripling, and now you see almost every week another college is adding women's wrestling. So I'd say the last 4 or 5 years we've really seen the growth of it, but women's wrestling had been around for a while. Some of the original schools are still competing at a high level, but now there's just so many more opportunities.
Well, that's great, especially for all those women who want to compete collegiately. It's wonderful for them to have that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another big reason I got into the sport, I have a younger sister who's coming through high school actually right now who is a wrestler. She actually just qualified for the Iowa State wrestling tournament. And, I just saw the passion that she had for the sport. I saw that, the way that she went out and was a competitor was, almost more drive than I had when I was a competitor. And that just, that sparked my interest in the sport. I had known girl wrestlers, women wrestlers coming up through my career, but it hadn't been an important part of my life until after my sister decided to join. And that gave me kind of a kickstart. I wanted to be a part of it. And one thing led to another. And now, I think this is my true calling. It's really my passion. I've always loved wrestling, but women's wrestling gave me almost, rejuvenated energy when it came to the sport.
Well, good on you. That's a great big brother moment right there, to feel that way towards, having your sister see that success and kind of living through that a little bit. That's awesome. Well done. Are you able to recruit her?
Not yet.
Or are there weird rules with the NCAA siblings recruiting?
So we're going to wait on that a little bit, but one of these days I'll be recruiting her.
Okay, awesome.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about what's involved with starting a program like this from the beginning for CSC. How hard is that? What kind of hurdles are there? Or what's maybe been a success story as we get this first and second year out of the way?
So luckily I had experience starting a program from scratch prior to coming to Chadron. At Indian Hills, we didn't have a wrestling room. We didn't have a training facility. We had no men's or women's teams. So I got to start at literally the ground floor and just kind of learn what it's going to take to get a program up and running. So when I came out here, I at least had a vision in a little bit of a a game plan for how I wanted to do it. And the first step was I had to find a team. So I really hit the ground running, recruiting. I probably that first month that I was out here, I lived in the office. I was on the phone with coaches and kids, pretty much sunrise to sunset, and just finding out who was going to be interested in becoming the first Chadron State women's wrestlers. And luckily, I had some success and got some girls to buy in and come out here on a whim. Some of them, they decided to come here a week before the start of classes. So it was
real fast for them.
Yep,
Okay.
and not from nearby either. We had one come from Las Vegas. We had one come from Arizona, and it was they wanted to keep wrestling, and this was the opportunity. But as far as everything else, luckily we already had the wrestling room in place. We had an established men's program that we could kind of bounce off of, and the rest was just trying to build a schedule, find competitions. That first year was really hard to get anyone to come out to Chadron, especially with a brand new program.
Right.
They didn't know necessarily what to expect out of us, but that first year we were able to really get our team to buy in, and ultimately we qualified half our team to the national tournament in year one, and 5 of those beginning 8 were actual academic All-Americans as well. So I think just having that group that really bought in really helped for growth in year 2 of the program.
Yeah, that really makes for a solid start. I know from the CSC Live side where I'm covering our home athletic events, I was kind of disappointed the first year that there was nothing at home, and so I was really looking forward to it this year, and we've had a few of those. Just had one this last Sunday before we were recording this, and it's been really interesting to see the differences in the two, compared to men's wrestling and the timing, and just seeing women kick some butt too.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I might be biased, but I think women's wrestling is a little bit more fan-friendly and exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Just action start to finish.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences? I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording. So the types of wrestling that men compete in and that the women compete in are different. Talk a little about that.
Yeah, so the men collegiately compete folk-style wrestling, and the women compete freestyle wrestling. So freestyle is what we wrestle internationally. So other countries, they don't really wrestle folk style at all. And when we go out to the Olympics or the World Championships, both the men's and the women's side, we compete freestyle. So it's actually made for a really easy transition for our high-level collegiate athletes to make that jump to international competition. But the big differences is freestyle is primarily from the neutral position, both wrestlers wrestling from their feet. They reward big moves and excitement, so you're given more points for a big throw. And the legality of it is a little different too. You'll see in freestyle wrestlers getting thrown and almost landing on their head, and they're not calling it an illegal move or potentially dangerous like the men's side. So things move really quickly. Matches can be over in 10, 15 seconds, with the tech fall being 10 points. The out of bounds also is different. So in women's wrestling, if one of the wrestlers steps out of bounds, that's automatically going to give their opponent a point.
Oh, interesting.
And so everything is.
I wish
scoreable.
That was in men's wrestling.
I think
I've covered some matches that
really
took
keeps
forever.
things moving.
I think that'd be one of the rules that they should think about changing for the men's side. But also freestyle, when after a takedown, the wrestlers are top-bottom position. They're only given about 10, 15, 20 seconds to work, and then if there's no action or no points scored from top, then they're just going to bring both wrestlers back up and blow the whistle and get the action started again.
And so still 3 periods, just like men's. Is the time amount different?
So they actually wrestle 2 periods.
Oh, okay.
Both are 3-minute periods, and in between there's a 30-second break. So you'll see if you watch freestyle, both wrestlers at the end of the period will go to their corners. So I can speak with my wrestler, give them water, tell them off, and just come up with a mid-match game plan, which is different than the men's side because even though there are periods, there's no break. It's just get set for the next position and start the period. Whereas freestyle, you do get that break. You do get to have a little bit more coaching opportunity mid-match. And another difference is there is no ties in freestyle. So even if the match is tied at the end of regulation, it will be decided based on whoever scored a larger point move. So if one person scored a 4-point move and the other wrestler only scored a 2, the one that had scored the 4-point move will be the winner. And if they'd scored the same amount of moves, so if they both had 2-point moves, the last score, whoever scored last in the match, would actually win the match, which makes it interesting. Yeah, so it changes game plan and strategy up a little bit. It's hard to hang out on a lead because it's so easy to come back and win it late. And it just makes it interesting for duels as well.
So from a coaching standpoint, I'm assuming you competed folk style and learned to coach folk style. How difficult was it to adapt to freestyle?
So I have wrestled freestyle since I was a kid.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So it was actually probably my favorite of the two. During high school season, I would compete folk style, and then as soon as season ended, I would roll right into freestyle and train for freestyle nationals and those events. And even when I was competing collegiately, I'd finish the collegiate season and then immediately start training freestyle and get prepared for the world team trials for freestyle. So I had a pretty good background in the sport. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I'd say my knowledge of it was better than most wrestlers coming out of college just because I wrestled it half the year. So the transition from going to fully freestyle was a little different. Now, wrestling folk style is just kind of weird for me because I've been so focused on freestyle for the last 4 or 5 years that that's what I do now.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
You mentioned a little bit about last season and the success you had. How's this season going, and what are some of the goals you guys have for the coming years?
So this year has been going really well for us. We started the year ranked 20th in the country nationally at the NCAA level, and we currently hold a 6-2 dual record. So we've had success dual-wise, and our wrestlers have been doing really well, placing and winning tournaments as this year's gone on. But ultimately, we're just in preparation for postseason. So our regional tournament, February 19th, we're just trying to make sure that our wrestlers are ready to go for that big one. And our goal this year is to have more national qualifiers than we did last year, which was 4. So if we can get 5 or more this year, that would be a success for us. And last year we finished, I believe, 26th at the national tournament as a team. So we're trying to crack the top 15 this year. That would be our big goal.
Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then going forward, what are your hopes?
So, I guess this year we plan on bringing a group to the U23 age level world team trials and trying to get somebody to qualify or place high and potentially be a world team member. We actually have one wrestler on our roster now that was a beach wrestling world team member, and they competed at the world championships last summer. But that will be our goal. After we finish this season, we'll transition into that and train for that. And then next year, our hopes are to start the year ranked higher than we did this year, get some wrestlers in the national ranking throughout the year. And, eventually we want to be a top 10 team nationally and consistently. We are lucky that Colorado Mesa is, a top nationally ranked team and in our conference. So we get to see them a lot. I get to bounce ideas off their coach and just see how they do things as well, because they're ranked 3rd in the country right now as a team. And that's the one that we're chasing down right now. And hopefully in the near future we can, catch up to them and hopefully surpass them.
Yeah, they've certainly had some impressive showings. So that's going to be exciting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alijah, what type of growth do you anticipate for women's wrestling? It seems like, as you mentioned, the high school level, they keep adding teams and more girls are getting the opportunity. But how do you see that kind of transitioning in the collegiate level and maybe even at the conference level at the RMAC?
So Originally, I had thought that the collegiate growth would not be sustainable, just with the amount of high school athletes making that transition to college. I thought there might be too many college selections and not enough wrestlers. But now I'm starting to think the opposite. I think, the collegiate women's wrestling growth is exponential right now because girls just continue to get involved with the sport. They continue to give it a shot. And, I think for that generation that's coming up through high school right now, wrestling on the girls' side is just as normal as it is for the boys. So numbers are skyrocketing. I think, it's a sport that could surpass the boys' side just because, there's not a lot of growth opportunities right now on the boys' side. Those wrestlers get involved with it, but for the girls, it's exciting. It's new. They want to give it a shot. High schools are promoting it, and now we're starting to see high school teams with rosters of 20, 30 girls on it. Mm-hmm. So I think that will transition over to the college level. I think last year the average roster size for an NCAA program was in between 13 and 14, and I think that's going to continue rising, and we'll see average rosters in the 20 range.
And how many women do you have on your team currently?
We have 26 on our team currently.
So above the average then.
Yep,
for sure here.
We're definitely above the average right now.
So we probably have a really competitive room, and even though not all of them get the ability to compete at a match, there's a lot of open opportunities, and certainly helping those who are competing in practice, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Nice to have a partner.
Yeah. It's been nice. We've got depth, and we've got a lot of partners in the room, and just a lot of wrestlers that will push each other. And like you said, we've got a lot of opportunities to compete. We're always trying to find opens, get all of our wrestlers matches. And something unique to collegiate women's wrestling right now is we can bring 15 wrestlers to our regional tournament and our qualifiers. So we have 10 weight classes. At 5 of those 10, we're bringing 2 wrestlers to go compete. Whereas the men, they get 1 wrestler to bring it at each weight class. So we're given more opportunities, and it allows for us to make sure that our wrestlers are seeing competition and competing at the highest level.
Yeah, and I can remember I used to talk to Scott Ritson a lot when I was the SID, and he was the wrestling coach. And I think Coach Hunter probably shares this philosophy too. If you have a competitive wrestling room, your team is just better for it, because there's only so much you can do as a coach when you're working with them individually or in a team setting. But there's a lot between. You got to have that play between the two who are wrestling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really the way to become an elite program, is to have multiple wrestlers that can push each other and can communicate throughout the practice and let each other know, what's working and what's not working. And a word that you use that I really like is play. That's a big emphasis in our practice room. We call it play wrestling. So instead of just drilling moves or positions, we actually let the wrestlers go in and just play through positions. It's not live, but it's close to it, and we encourage them to stop and talk through positions as needed, and just keeps it light and fun as well in the room. So it's not always serious, not always a grind, and it's worked out really well for us.
I always used to love traveling with wrestling at the national tournament, because there'd be 3 or 5 men who were competing. And in a couple of years, there wasn't a guy like me, 200 pounds. A guy like Jimmy Savala, who was 133, wasn't going to be able to spar with me to warm up, and so they always used to find the trainers.
Oh yeah,
and these poor trainers would just get worked before the national tournaments. I always felt bad for them.
That's awesome.
But those are kind of the things that wrestling has. I think wrestling has such a neat. A neat culture to it. Everyone really does want everyone to succeed. I mean, I'm sure there's the competitiveness and you want to win. I get all that, but there's a really nice collective spirit to it. So I'm glad that that women get the opportunity to participate in that too. I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the women's culture is really starting to find its own elements too. For a long time, it was the girls were just thrown in with the boys, and now they've got their own culture that's growing. And wrestling is a small world. Everyone kind of knows everyone, no matter where you're from. So it's kind of starting to shift on the women's side to that same culture.
Great.
Yeah. Elijah, tell us a little bit about, how did you get involved in wrestling as a young man and, going to college and all that? What's your background and growing up?
So I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Believe it or not, I didn't come from a wrestling family.
Okay.
My dad played collegiate baseball, and my mom was a swimmer. So I didn't have anyone that was really wrestling in my family. I was the oldest kid, but I liked the sport. I always wanted to try it out. I had friends that did it, and I was always begging my parents just to let me go to practice and see what it's about. And
there's no wrestling history in Iowa.
Yeah, no, but I went to practice and I fell in love with it right away. And Iowa wrestling, they go hand in hand. So I was lucky to have some really great coaches growing up. I had club coaches that were Division I All-Americans. My high school coach was a Division I All-American for the University of Iowa. So
nice.
I got kind of lucky in that regard that I had such great coaches at a young age, and I had success through high school, and I went on to compete at Northern Illinois University. So we competed in the MAC conference. I spent 5 years out there, and then shortly after began my coaching career.
Right on. That's great.
Elijah, what are some things that you like to do outside of work? And now that the program is somewhat established, hopefully you're not working sun up to sun down. But I think you told me that you enjoy hiking around and spending time in the outdoors and spending time with your dogs. What else do you got going on?
So those are the big ones, and that was a big reason that Chadron was so appealing to me to begin with. There's so many places that I can get to and spend time, especially in the summer. I can go up to the Black Hills and go hiking and camping. I can get down to the mountains. I can go out to Wyoming, and that's really my big passion outside of wrestling. So once off season comes, a lot of weekends I'll find a spot, go camping, and just find some cool things to do that I really couldn't do for the bulk of my life. Iowa it's a great place, but you just don't get to see those things in Iowa. And I'm newly engaged, so
congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you. My fiance and I, we like the same things. We have the same interests, so it's nice for us. We go out and explore and make new adventures. And you mentioned the dogs. We've got 2 ginormous dogs at home. We've got a Great Dane that's almost 2 years old, and a Boxer Mastiff that's 4 years old. So they're big boys, and they like to spend time outdoors too. So it's really nice for us.
Good.
Have you got a favorite spot, say locally and regionally? Like what's the place if you had your choice, where would you go and hike and camp out at this point?
So I've really fallen in love with Sylvan Lake.
Oh,
out
great
in
place.
Custer. Yeah. We go out there at least 2-3 times a year right now, and that's a place that I've really fallen in love with. I like the Medicine Bow. We've explored out there in Wyoming, and just still trying to find out some new locations.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's see. I think that takes us to our quick hitting questions. First one: favorite sports team of yours?
Kansas City Chiefs.
All right.
So, yep. I'm a big Chiefs fan, and it was nice to see them get the job done on Sunday, and now they've got a spot in the Super Bowl, so we'll be watching that next weekend. But yeah, Kansas City Chiefs for sure.
All right.
What about a favorite movie? I would imagine you got to watch several as you travel to all these tournaments.
Yeah. But, I would have to say I like some of the classics. Starsky and Hutch. That's the remake with Ben Stiller.
Oh, sure,
and
yeah.
Owen Wilson. That's one of my all-time favorites. Man, what other ones do I like? I'm a big Ben Stiller fan. I like all his older stuff, and him and Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. Those were some of my
that's fun
favorite
stuff.
actors.
Funny
Yeah,
things.
yep. Those are the ones I like to watch.
This might be a bit of a pivot, but there's sports movies as a genre. There's great baseball movies and maybe some good football movies, and there's a wonderful hockey movie, Slapshot. It's hilarious. What's the best wrestling movie in your opinion?
So wrestling movies have always been tough for me to watch, just because of the actual wrestling. It just it does, yeah, it's a little cringy. But actually, there's one that they did a really good job. Foxcatcher. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, that's the one with the DuPont.
Yep.
Yeah.
DuPont.
Mm-hmm.
And the wrestling in that is great. The story's great. True story. And I'd say that's the best one in my opinion. I know that there's the classics out there, but yeah, I think Foxcatcher is the all-time greatest.
Okay. All right.
Nice. Go-to wrestling move.
So I've changed a little bit since I've become a coach. I think the style I coach is different than when I wrestled. I'd say my favorite move as a wrestler was the low single. I spent hundreds of hours perfecting that. So that's definitely my favorite, my go-to move. But as a coach, I think my favorite move would be the bent leg Turk. And if you ask any of our wrestlers on our team to hit a bent leg Turk, I bet they'd all be able to show you one.
Great.
we work it quite a bit, and it's super effective at our level. But we have to keep that on the down low, so the other teams out there aren't.
We may have to do a little static on this part of the show.
Do you have like a code word that you yell out when you want them to pull that move?
No, I kind of just yell it out, and no one else really knows what it is, so it's hard for me to defend it. Yeah.
Well, we just don't need to show maybe any footage of what it actually is.
Nothing.
Elijah, what's the best advice that you received as a college student?
As a college student, I'd say the best advice would be learn how to manage your social, your school, and your athletics, because all of them are important to be successful at the college level, whether you're an athlete, or just a student. Being able to manage all three of those is important. You can't have, one without the other. And even a great coach that I worked with at Indian Hills, Coach Cole Spree, he had always said the same thing, but he said it a little differently. Be a great person, be a great student, be a great athlete, and it's got to be in that order. You can't be one without the other. So you got to be a great person, and you have to be a great student before you can be a great athlete. And that's one that I still preach to our team. I think it's really important to not neglect the first two, and you can't be an athlete without being a great person and a great student.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. So final question, can you tell us your hidden talent?
So I guess this one will go along with my hobbies. I forgot to mention. So I'm an avid disc golfer. I actually play.
That's why you came here, because of the Chadron State Park course.
Yep. That was the big draw.
Yep.
And I actually play professionally.
Nice.
In the spring and summer. So
I got to get some pointers from you, because my form is absolutely terrible, but I still love going out there and running around.
No, it's a lot of fun, and I travel halfway across the country to play disc golf tournaments, and
that's great.
That's my talent and my biggest hobby, I guess.
That's a good one.
That's cool. You should host like a clinic or something in the summer.
I've been thinking about it.
There's people who play. There's a large group in Sydney that come up. I think there's a course in Alliance. So I've definitely seen, and the course at Chadron State Park is fabulous.
Yeah, no, I've met a lot of people from Rapid City, Alliance, Kimball, Scotts Bluff. I met a lot of people through disc golf. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to put on a clinic.
All right.
Right on. Let's make it happen.
Starting it.
Yeah,
Love it.
I'll join.
Well, I think that takes us to the end.
Yeah, that's it.
Elijah, thanks again for coming onto the podcast with us. We really appreciate having you here.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, good luck the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.